Okay. Well, Kristen, what do you think? You want to?
Yeah, Gina, we're very happy to have you here, even if it's an audience of one. So I want to make sure we maximize sort of your time. And let's do it. Let's jump in.
So Gina, we'll talk a little bit. We'll just share a little bit of our overview, and then if you'd like, we can kind of take this any route that's helpful, or we can go through kind of our main presentation here. So would love feedback from you as we do introductions here around how to make this the most useful, given we're presenting just for you today. So my name is Daniel Johnson. I'm associate partner with Education Elements. I'm calling in today from Washington, D.C. I've been working with the company for about 7 years, and before that was working in school systems in Mississippi and New York City. And in the time that I've worked at Elements, I've supported schools, districts, state organizations across the country with design and implementation work, much like T-Class Decision 2, and specifically focused on blended and personalized instruction, strategic planning, and a lot of the work that we'll talk with you about today. So Kristen, would you like to?
Yeah.
Well?
Hi, Gina. Kristen Howell. I'm joining from Denver, Colorado. I have worked with TA and MIZ for the last 3 years. So not sure if you're specifically an MIZ partner, but we have 20 plus districts we've worked with over the last several years in supporting the shift to blended personalized learning, and how do you utilize and optimize the high quality instructional materials that you have, think about what your gaps are. So this is an area that I love, that I'm excited to talk further with you and hopefully work with some more districts this year on. I worked in Chicago public schools, San Francisco public schools. I've been kind of all over at the district level, in addition to being a middle school math and science teacher and coach.
And we can tell you a little bit more about who Education Elements is. See here on the right, we have a team made up of a lot of former educators, change management experts, and we work all across the country. So we'll talk with you a little bit more about who we are. We do want to check in with you, and you can just come off mute here, and you don't need to choose one of these 4, but we wanted to start with kind of what's the pain point or pain points that you're hoping to address through Decision 2A support. We put a few options here: being responsive to current needs, increasing rigor and relevance, creating more alignment and coherence, developing a strong roadmap for success. But we'd love to hear from you, Gina. Maybe if you can tell us a little bit about what you're hoping to get out of Decision 2A, and then also what you'd like to learn in our time together here. And we've got some slides put together, and we're happy to run through them, but also want to make, again, the best use of your time.
So definitely for us, I think having the 2A support is really going to help us get that alignment. We definitely saw that our teachers were using just a lot of different things, and we want to make sure that what they're using is really going to be purposeful and get us the best support for our students to be able to be successful and continue to grow as we move forward. Definitely with the pandemic, we did experience some learning loss. We were fortunate to be in a rural area where most of our students were able to come face-to-face last school year. We know some of our, other school districts weren't as lucky. They had more students doing the remote learning, and that created more of an issue. But those students that did choose the remote learning last year, we do see some larger gaps for them. So we're hoping that this will help us bridge that gap.
Yeah. Absolutely. So both alignment across your staff in the way that you instruct, and also bridging some of the alignment gaps between your students and the experiences they've had over the last year.
Yes.
Great. Well, we can certainly, we'll hope to speak directly to each of those today and a little bit about our approach. Before we go too much further, though, I will kind of share agenda. So we plan to talk a little bit about who we are, our philosophies as a company, some of our beliefs around instruction. We have our own really pedagogy background in terms of the way we think about HQIM materials. So we wanted to share a little bit about that. and then specifically the design and implementation methodology that we would use in this work. But again, Gina, I want to turn it back to you. You know, you're going to a few vendors today. What would be most helpful? Do you like us to speak to each of these, or is there a certain angle that you'd like us to zoom in on?
I think mostly about the high quality instruction and the support for that. I think that's probably going to be the biggest element that we're looking at.
Okay,
Great.
sounds good.
Yeah, if you want to breeze through, Daniel, I can do a quick who we are, but like very through that. Yeah. So just a little bit about us, Gina. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that elements, but we have been around for 10 plus years. We do work in a lot of different areas, as you can see from the little circles there on the bottom of the screen. As Daniel mentioned, blended personalized learning and strategic planning are really how we're utilizing or thinking about this work and making it really customized for you. So just something you should know. Yeah, you can go on. Our approach to partnership is really about understanding specific needs, adapting our approach based on who you are as a district, what your values are, what your challenges are, what your strengths are, and really building kind of capacity in all that we do. So we're very proud of the fact that 90% of our partners are return partners, that we've worked with them and then we continue to work with them for a number of years. And Daniel, if you go on. We do have this sort of ethos around our company that our partners are families, are part of our family. And I know that sounds probably very corny, but we just pulled a couple of texts between the two of us of different, just different examples of how our partners have really become part of our family. So you'll see like one of our clients' sons wearing our hoodie for his first day of senior year. So just little things like that we try to always infuse fun and sort of family in all of our partnerships. And we have worked across Texas for the last 10 plus years. We're missing some dots here, but we've worked with some of the largest like Dallas and Houston, and then of course districts that have 1 to 3 schools and everything in between. So we have a lot of familiarity with some rural districts and some of the challenges that come with that and some of the strengths, in addition to more of our kind of bigger urbans as well across the state. This is just a little bit about how we think about change. I think something that's super important to us is we think about change from sort of the classroom level to the boardroom level, and that alignment and coherence of everything in between, knowing that you really need to have sort of an organizational wide approach if you're going to impact change at scale. All right, and then we'll dig into sort of that core 4, our framework for pedagogy of instruction. So when we think about change, we think about the challenges you're trying to solve as a district and as a system. These are sort of our principles that guide our work. Student-centered and future-driven. Really, at the end of the day, this is always about students, right? And ensuring that we're setting them up to be successful in a life beyond, a world in which we don't even know what it's going to look like, right? Things are changing so rapidly. We want to make sure we're preparing them for that future. Nurturing learning environments. So knowing that whole child SEL approach is so important that we can't just think about content and curriculum. We have to think about how our students are receiving that content and curriculum and sort of the different barriers and factors that they're dealing with. Equity focused is huge for us. Really thinking about students' different needs and personalizing our instruction, our supports to meet those different needs. And then data, I think, particularly as we're thinking about instructional materials, how are we consistently and constantly capturing data and using that data to inform our instructional decisions? So when we think about high quality instructional materials, we think about the pedagogy and instructional practices as sort of the vehicles to ensuring that you're getting the highest bang for your buck or impact from those materials. We know that you can have great instructional materials, but if they sit on the shelf, if they're not utilized in service of sort of a personalized blended model for students, that they're not going to get the full benefit of them. So we really think about what that instructional practice looks like and what is the professional learning that we need to put into place to ensure educators can utilize those materials to the fullest extent of sort of their value. So, Daniel mentioned this is our core 4 for personalized and blended learning. When we're working with districts and schools, we often adapt this to really reflect, the different values, different approaches that the district has. But for us, these four elements, targeted instruction, reflection and goal setting, flexible path and pace, and collaboration and creativity are really the way in which we can get those student outcomes where it actually drives towards also student ownership. Because at the end of the day, that's sort of the center of everything we're doing is developing learners who are going to, be owners of that learning and be able to be successful beyond the four walls of our schools and classrooms. So this is a little bit more zoomed out of looking at the core four here. We don't tackle all of these areas at once. We always work with districts to really focus, and that's through understanding what their strengths are, what their needs are, through going to classrooms, really getting a sense of what instruction's looking like. And for us, targeted instruction and reflection and goal setting are often where we start when we're thinking about high quality instructional materials. How are you using them in the data to target instruction, to really personalize? And then how are you ensuring that students are having some ownership over that data, and doing some reflection and setting goals to really drive towards that student ownership. So I'm going to pause here. Gina, I just talked a lot at you about sort of the way in which we approach instruction and sort of change at the classroom to the district level. We can go deeper into like our methodology of what it looks like to partner with us and how we sort of approach this work. But I want to pause here. Is this resonating, this framework? Are there things that you're seeing that are aligning with what your goals are? Do you have specific questions?
I mean, I don't have any specific questions. Yes, definitely it does. We've been doing some things along the lines of what you've discussed. And so, yeah, it definitely kind of aligns with what we're doing and what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, and a lot of it is like codifying those really great practices that are happening and then understanding how you can kind of scale those out, like really taking sort of stock and inventory of what's happening in classrooms that's really strong, that's really supporting this, and then helping to bridge other educators to use those same practices too. Dan, you want to talk a little bit more about sort of our approach?
Yep. So Gina, can you remind us, it was quick, the school district that you're coming from?
Carn City.
Carn City?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, whoops, I think that's right. So we wanted to talk a little bit about our approach, and I know you're asking questions around, what the relationship here is, or what the methodology and implementation looks like. We think about this work, or we think about the work that we do at districts similar to helping you build a dream house. So we have a 4-phase approach that is all about building the systems and the structures that you want to live in, and that are unique to Carn City. So the first here, plan and align, is really about building an understanding of the current state of curricular resources and implementation in your district. You mentioned alignment across your staff, and also alignment across your students. So the work here would be really about helping you codify what that current state is and what it is that you're working against or working towards. So we spend a lot of time up front with you all engaging in that process. And we'll break this down in a little bit more detail on the next slide. The second is foundations. So this is using that data, developing a sound base, a foundation that we can build from, a theory of action for the curricular goals and the high quality instruction material, the use of the high quality instruction materials that you're adopting in this process. So what is our vision for that? What are our goals, and what are the actions that are going to get us there? Our design phase is really about building that out. What are the instructional models? What does this look like in a classroom? What does this look like over a week or over a month? Are there any adjustments you need to make to your course calendars? Is there any adjustments you need to make structurally to allow these to be adopted? We love to bring teachers and leaders into this part of the process. So actually, if we can pilot with teachers, this is a great time and space to do that. if it's an opportunity to bring in coaches for perspective and think about the ways in which they can coach teachers through this work. We like to, if you're thinking about a spring pilot, this is an opportunity to really get that going and get that tested. And then lastly, a launch phase. So living in your house, getting it the grand opening, developing an implementation plan to further pilot and actually scale out and engage your teachers, your stakeholders in the HQIM adoption itself. So I'll break this down just a little bit more. I know I spoke to most of those phases in some detail, but each phase includes objectives and outcomes. So our plan and align phase, getting clear on a governance structure, really a cross-functional group across your district that you want to be involved in this work. Understanding the communication needs for your board, your staff, and your community as you go through an HQIM adoption. And really meeting with your stakeholder groups, whether that's through surveys, focus groups, if we can be on ground for learning walks, to define that current state. As you can see some images on the right, some of the tools and structures we use, some of the readout from focus groups, some of the trends there around curriculum, and also some of the surveying that we would do to help you all really get a good, clear understanding. I know, Gina, you sound like you do have an understanding of where you're going, but really getting that robustly built out and defined for everyone. Foundations, again, the idea here is using that work, using the data that we've collected, the empathy that we've done to define the theory of action and vision for the HQIM adoption. So getting clear on our mission for that work, the vision, the theory of action that will drive it, the teams, actions, and the goals. So this is a collaborative process with you all of getting really clear on your roadmap, because we know that, again, as Kristen mentioned, without these pieces in place, these materials tend to either live on a shelf or not scale. Our third is, again, the design phase. So we bring to this work really knowledge and key considerations, best practices of HQI implementation, all of the curriculum providers, whatever you select. As Kristen mentioned, you saw the state of Texas that we work in. Imagine that across the country. We have worked in districts and organizations that use every single one of the curricular materials that is being adopted in this process, and we've designed around each of them. So we would work with you all to, again, design classroom instructional models, daily, weekly, monthly schedules, course calendars that really fit the needs of your district and embody our values around quality, student-centered instruction. So we not only lead you through that work, we have a very clear perspective on what that can look and feel and mean in a classroom environment. And then lastly, again, the launch phase. The goal here is that you walk away with an implementation plan that includes the ways in which you'll communicate the adoption to your teachers, to your community, your rollout strategy, multi-year or depending on the guardrails that you put in place for that, and your professional development structure, and opportunities to monitor, assess, progress along that vision and theory of action. So you can see on the right here just some images around some of the communication vehicles that we've supported districts in putting together for that launch. So I know there's a lot to unpack there, but I want to emphasize, we really work hard to customize this work so that you have a really unique strategy in place for your curriculum adoption. We hope that we have opportunities to further support your teachers and staff as part of this. We have a lot of experience there. And so again, we hope that we can bring them into the design and launch work itself. And again, we have a lot of experience doing this work across the state of Texas, specifically within the MIS programming and elsewhere. So I think that's it, Kristen, in terms of methodology, but want to make sure, did I miss anything? And then we'd love to engage in question and answer.
Welcome, Regina. I noticed you just popped in. Gina, I want to give you an opportunity to ask questions, dig in deeper in any area that's either resonating or that you want some more information.
I'm actually good. Thank you so much I think you all went kind of in depth there, and I kind of got all the details. we're going to meet with our team next week and kind of go over some of these sessions and make a decision. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you, Gina.
Regina, are you here with us? All right, Regina, if you, I don't know if you can come off mute, that would be great, or just drop in the chat. We'd love to get to know you a little bit. We just ran through most of our materials, but we're happy to step back and do that again with you based on what you're looking for and you know, the questions that you're looking to answer.